watching GVTV News.
Thanks, Gloria, and I'm Randy Hansen. In today's World News headlines, U.S. approves expansion drone strike in Yemen. A military judge rejects dismissal of Manning charges, sets trial date. The Supreme Court weighs Arizona anti-immigration law, and Connecticut abolishes death penalty for future cases. An ex-Liberian President Taylor convicted of war crimes. And up to 69 killed in Syria blast. An Israeli general doubts Iran seeking nukes. And a Murdoch appears before UK phone hacking panel, and Mexico probes Walmart bribery claims, and protests held nationwide as student debt hits $1 trillion. Occupy activists protest GE shareholders meeting, and Senate backs Postal Service debt bill, and Pentagon orders review of anti-Islam material, and 60 evacuated following Wyoming gas blowout, and transgender African-American woman faces controversial murder trial. GVTV News would like to say the views expressed on our news broadcast do not necessarily reflect the views of NCTV Digital Media Center. But before these stories, GVTV News would like to thank one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. In today's first world news story, the White House has approved a radical expansion of how it carries out drone strikes inside Yemen. The Washington Post reports President Obama has granted a CIA request to launch drone attacks even if it does not know the identities of those who will be killed. So-called signature strike policy went into effect earlier this month, and at least one attack has already been launched. It is widely expected the number of U.S. drone strikes will see a radical jump with the new policy in place. At least 48 civilians have been killed in 27 U.S. strikes inside Yemen since 2009. The sweeping leeway for the strikes has already been in effect in Pakistan, where U.S. drones have killed hundreds of civilians. A military judge has rejected a defense request to dismiss all charges against alleged Army whistleblower Private Bradley Manning. On Wednesday, Colonel Denise Lind rejected Manning's attorney's claim of prosecutorial misconduct. It set a trial date for September 21st. Manning faces a life in imprisonment for allegedly leaking classified documents that ended up in whistleblowing website WikiLeaks. The Supreme Court has heard arguments in a closely watched case that challenges Arizona's notorious anti-immigration law. The Obama administration has challenged 4 provisions of law known as SB 1070 for interfering with federal immigration enforcement. The case could have been implications for half a dozen other states that passed similar measures, which are now on holding pending its outcome. And Connecticut Governor Daniel Malloy has signed into law a state measure abolishing the death penalty. Connecticut becomes the 17th state overall and the 5th in 5 years to end capital punishment, but the change will only apply to future cases. The 11 prisoners currently on death row in Connecticut will still face death. An international tribunal has convicted former Liberian President Charles Taylor on 11 counts of war crimes during Sierra Leone's civil war. Taylor was found guilty of overseeing crimes including murder, rape, conscripting child soldiers, and sexual slavery. He becomes the first African head of state to be found guilty in an international court. Earlier this year, U.S. officials confirmed long-held suspicions Taylor worked with the CIA and other U.S. intelligence agencies during his emergence as a warlord in the 80s. Dozens of people have reportedly been killed in a massive explosion in the restive Syrian city of Hama Opposition activists say at least 69 people died when Syrian forces fired a rocket at a civilian building. Syrian government has blamed opposition rebels, saying they mishandled bombs intended for use against state troops. Activists say at least 13 children and 16 women were among the dead. Israel's top military officer has backed U.S. intelligence assessments Iran has abandoned efforts to build a nuclear bomb. In an interview, Lieutenant General Benny Gantz called Iranian leaders very rational people who appear to have been swayed by international sanctions to stop nuclear efforts. Gant's comments contrast with the view of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, whose repeatedly referral to Iran as an existential threat. News Corp chief executive Rupert Murdoch appeared before a British inquiry on Wednesday to face new questions on the phone hacking scandal that has engulfed his media empire. Under questioning under inquiry chair Robert J. Murdoch repeatedly denied allegations of using his vast media holdings to promote British politicians who aided his financial interests. And he said, "Mr. J, you keep inferring that endorsements were motivated by business motives, and if they had been the case, we would have endorsed the Tory party in every election. It's always more pro-business. You know, after a while, if these lies are repeated again and again, they sort of catch on, and particularly where successful, people who are resentful can grab into them. But they aren't true." Returning to testify earlier yesterday, Murdoch apologized for the hacking scandal, saying he failed to pay sufficient attention to the ongoings of his now-defunct newspaper, The News of the World. Outside the British inquiry, members of the online group Avaz gathered for a full accounting for Murdoch's dealings with the British politicians. And if heads need to roll, they should roll the type of crimes that the Murdochs and the staff are accused of: bribing police, hacking schoolgirls' phones. They're outrageous, and the people will not stand for another cover-up, they said. Mexico has announced a probe in U.S. retail giant Walmart for allegations of systematically having bribery. An investigation by the New York Times found Walmart paid Mexican officials more than $24 million in bribes to win construction permits in Mexico. The company failed to report any of the information to law enforcement at the time. Mexico federal anti-corruption agencies will conduct a probe, which follows a similar investigation by the Department of Justice. College students across the nation took part in protests on Wednesday to mark the 1T day of the U.S. $1 trillion day, the day U.S. student debt is expected to reach $1 trillion. The Day of Action was organized to protest record-high college costs and call for an extension of low interest rates on federally subsidized Stafford loans. In New York City, hundreds of students rallied to Union Square Park wearing signs noting their debt burden and setting fire to bills and debt papers. Dozens of protesters affiliated with the Occupy movement rallied in Detroit on Wednesday at the annual shareholder meeting of the corporate giant General Electric. A group of 100 demonstrators made it inside the meeting to disrupt the opening proceedings. The protesters chanted, "Pay your fair share," a reference to GE's notorious low tax rate. Well, it's actually zero, I think. It was the second consecutive day to see an Occupy protest at a shareholder meeting, following one on Tuesday against bank giant Wells Fargo in San Francisco. And Senate lawmakers have passed a bill that would overhaul the finances and debt stricken U.S. Postal Service and potentially delay the planned closing of as many as 3,700 post offices. The measure authorizes nearly $11 billion for the agency to offer buyouts and early retirement incentives to workers as well as repay its debts. Senators also set restrictions on the closing of the post office in rural areas and delayed a plan to end Saturday's deliveries for 2 years. The House has yet to schedule a vote on the rival bill from Republican Representative Darrell Issa. The Postal Service is set to begin closing more post office processing centers on May 15th. It's plunged into debt under a controversial 2006 law that forced Postal Service to become the only agency required to fund 75 years of retiree health benefits over just a 10-year span. The chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Martin Dempsey, has ordered a review to ensure no military schools are teaching anti-Islamic content. Order comes after Pentagon suspended a course in Joint Force Staff College in Norfolk, Virginia, that taught senior officers the United States is at war with Islam. More than 60 people have been evacuated from their homes following a blowout and gas leak at Chesapeake Energy well near Douglas, Wyoming. The energy company says it lost control of the well while installing a steel casing. There were reports of natural gas gushing into the air and roaring sound of escaping gas that could be heard from miles away. No injuries have been reported. A transgender African-American woman is facing trial for murder after an incident outside a Minneapolis bar that she was reportedly harassed and then physically attacked. CeCe McDonald, 23 years old, is scheduled to stand trial later this month for second-degree murder. But supporters say McDonald was the victim on June 5, 2011, after two women and a man, all of them Caucasian, began harassing her and her friends outside a bar, calling them racial and homophobic slurs. One woman then allegedly hit McDonald in the side of the face with a glass beer mug. While the events remain unclear, a fight then ensued that left 47-year-old Dean Schmidt dead after he was apparently stabbed by a pair of fabric scissors that had been in McDonald's purse. Police arrested McDonald but did not arrest anyone else at the scene. McDonald received 11 stitches after her salivary gland was lacerated and the side of her cheek was sliced open by the beer mug. She was reportedly interrogated without counsel, placed in solitary confinement, and there were reports dead man Dean Schmitz had a swastika tattooed on his chest and was known for making hateful remarks. McDonald supporters have compared the case to Trayvon Martin, said it highlights bias against transgender people, African Americans, in the criminal justice system. She could face up to 80 years in prison. In New York City, a number of activists were arrested on Wednesday, marking the 25th anniversary of ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, an international direct action advocacy group formed to challenge the government's mismanagement of the AIDS crisis. At least 9 people were detained after chaining themselves together and blockading the street to call for tax on Wall Street to fund AIDS service and treatment. Eric Sawyer said ACT UP activists said, "We've made a lot of progress since those days when we were here in '87 for the first protest. We only had one treatment for HIV approved, is AZT. It wasn't effective treatment by itself. There's not enough research happening. There were a number of promising drugs that could be tested that weren't getting tested. There's no social protections, no anti-discrimination laws. There is no safety net. People with AIDS didn't have access to Medicaid, card, food stamps, or housing. There was no protection for people against getting fired from their jobs, denied insurance, evicted from their apartments, or really to deal with violence that has happened all over against people with AIDS. Their houses are being burned, people have been beaten up. A lot of that has changed, but we still don't have government commitment to end AIDS crisis. We know we could now. We know that if we get people in treatment, their viral load goes away and they become non-infectious. It reduces the infectivity to 97% of it, not only to keep people with AIDS healthy, but to stop the spread of the virus. And that's it for World News today. Now we'd like to thank another one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News.
Soundcheck Music Center, the rock and roll connection. We have guitars, amps, drum equipment, sound accessories, lessons, and repairs. We are located at 671 Maltman Drive, Grass Valley. 530-272-7236, open 7 days a week.
No one needs anyone, they don't even just pretend. John is an American. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't help it. I'm afraid I can't. I'm afraid of Americans. I'm afraid of the world. I'm afraid I can't.
That's right, it's time for the police blotter, and pictures in the blotter not from these actual events, but used for visual aid only. Grass Valley Police Department on Tuesday, 8:05 a.m. a caller from 400 block of Colfax Avenue reported a transient using a bathroom and leaves a mess. He was advised not to return. 9:39 a.m. a man from 400 block of South Auburn Street reported a drunken man attacked him. Man was arrested on suspicion of petty theft and battery. 11:34 a.m. a man from 400 block of Colfax Avenue reported a man threatened to put a gun to his head. It was found to be mutual combat and no charges were desired. And 12 p.m. a caller from West Olympia Drive reported a shed on fire. 3:33 p.m. a caller from 100 block East Main Street reported someone tried to light a roll of paper towels on fire in a bathroom. And 4:18 p.m. a caller from 100 block of Florence Avenue reported ongoing petty theft. And 4:39 p.m. a caller from Hennessy School reported 3 teens smoking marijuana who could not be located. And 6:53 p.m. caller from 600 block of Sutton Way reported a drunken man trying to drive away. He was arrested on suspicion of being drunk in public. And 7:26 p.m., a caller from 700 block of Sutton Way reported a man took liquor and Skittles. The merchandise was recovered. 7:51 p.m., caller from Memorial Park reported 8 juveniles were throwing vodka bottles and yelling. Man was arrested on suspicion of giving a false name, violating a restraining order, and having an outstanding warrant. The others cleaned up the mess. 9:19 p.m., caller from Manor Drive reported transients were living in an outbuilding on a vacant property. 2 people agreed to move on. And 9:35 p.m., caller from 400 block of South Auburn Street reported a hit and run. A woman was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence and possession of a controlled substance. And Wednesday, 1:15 a.m., a caller from 400 block of Idaho Maryland Road reported copper from air conditioning units had been stolen again. Nevada County Sheriff's Office on Tuesday, 8:54 a.m. A woman from 15,000 block of Little Valley Road reported a person had just been released from jail, was very drunk and yelling outside her trailer. 10:07 a.m. a man reported a person hit him several times. A woman was arrested on suspicion of spousal abuse. At 9:26 a.m., a caller from 12,000 block of Crystal Wells Road reported the theft of a built-in barbecue from a foreclosed property. At 9:36 a.m., a caller from Buckboard Road and Sharmadan Way reported finding bank statements and dumped trash that were traced back to a stolen vehicle. At 11:09 a.m., a woman from 10,000 block of McCourtney Road reported an aggressive man was hurting her feelings and disrespecting her. At 12:29 p.m., a caller from Auburn and Pingree Roads reported a person had dumped an injured dog on the side of the road. 1:58 p.m., caller from 13,000 block of Meadow Drive reported theft of several items from residents last Thursday. And 2:42 p.m., a welfare check was requested for a woman who had reported that her boyfriend struck her. 5:56 p.m., a caller from 13,000 block of Rough and Ready Highway reported a theft. At 9:25 p.m., a man from Cedar Crest Court reported a woman took a vehicle for a test drive 3 hours ago and had not returned. She left her vehicle in his driveway. He called back to report she returned and she had lost track of time. Wednesday, 2:15 a.m. A caller from 10,000 block of Partridge Road reported a drunken person trying to drive away with people trying to restrain him. He was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. And that's it for today for the Police Blotter. Now we'd like to thank another one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. Christopher's Old World Deli and Catering Company has brought its delicious food and service downtown Grass Valley. Like desserts? They got 'em. You like international style lunches? They got 'em. Christopher's Deli and Catering for parties, get-togethers, weddings, or whatever. Open 7 days a week. In local news headlines, man who died with after taser incident had record of arrests. In Butte and Yuba counties approve marijuana cultivation ordinances. Jail fight sends officers to hospital. And Grass Valley pilot safely lands 757 after one engine quits. In today's first local story, written by Trina Kleist out of the Union, a man who died a day after the Grass Valley police officer shot him with a taser had a record of minor arrests in Nevada County and at least 2 other counties. There's nothing the doctor found that would indicate right now what the exact cause of death would be, Schmidt said. In Nevada County, Christensen was arrested for driving under the influence in 2009, according to Superior Court records. He was sentenced to 33 days in jail and 18 days of credit for time served and a fine. His term of probation included enrolling in a 3-month program for DUI offenders, but he never paid the fine or enrolled in DUI school, and a bench warrant was issued, court records show. Christensen was arrested by the California Highway Patrol in Tehama County in September 2010, CHP officer in Red Bluff reported. It was on the warrant for DUI, driving on a suspended license and no proof of insurance, said CHP officer Philip McIntosh. Christensen was charged with violating probation, sentenced to 20 days in jail, credited for 10 days served, and 10 days were suspended, according to court records. He again was ordered into a DUI program. He was in court on the matter April 2nd. In Colusa County, Christensen was arrested June 2009 and pleaded guilty to charges of aggravated trespass. He was ordered to pay a fine of $240 in August 2009, according to court records. After failing to pay first at the rate of $50 per month, then a rate of $25 per month, he was rearrested at least twice. He served county jail time. His fine balance of $275 was discharged in December 2010, records show. Previously, Christensen had lived in Smartsville, Yuba City, and several Central Valley towns, according to USSearch.com. Christensen died Monday morning at Sierra Memorial Hospital, Nevada Memorial Hospital, on Sunday afternoon after standing partially clothed on the street, reportedly yelling at people, attacking the driver of a vehicle who stopped at the scene and ignored repeated police quests to get out of the street. Officers shot him with a taser. Nevada County District Attorney's Office is investigating the incident. A final report should be available in about 4 months, according to toxicology report, including a toxicology report. Meanwhile, an autopsy was performed Tuesday on Bruce Wayne Christensen, 52, to determine the cause of death, County Coroner Paul Schmidt said. As Nevada County looks to enact its own marijuana cultivation ordinance, a pair of nearby Northern California counties have taken similar approaches. Butte County has an ordinance on the books that, despite the state's passage of Prop 215, the Compassionate Use Act of 1996, completely bans growing on residential property of less than a half acre. Last week, Yuba County supervisors adopted first reading of an ordinance governing where medical marijuana grows are considered public nuisances. By a 4-to-1 vote, Yuba County supervisors will vote on a final adoption at May 1st meeting, with the ordinance taking effect 30 days later if approved. Nevada County's ordinance limit outdoor cultivation in terms of square footage, and for example, for parcels zoned residential or rural parcels smaller than 2 acres, the ordinance allows cultivation of a 75 contiguous square feet outdoor cultivation. Yuba County's ordinance allows an area of cultivation not to exceed 100 feet and not to contain more than 6 mature marijuana plants for parcels of less than 1 acre. The allowable cultivation area and number of plants allow increases with the size of the parcel up to 500 square feet and 25 mature plants for properties larger than 20 acres. Butte County ordinance allows 24 mature and 24 immature plants for parcel ranges from 20 to 80 acres in size. Up to 99 plants are allowed in total for property of 160 acres or larger. A man facing new charges after allegedly fighting with jail personnel Monday, a week after being arrested for allegedly fleeing from a fighting with a Nevada County Sheriff deputy. Montel Talbert James, 20, was exhibiting combative behavior at Wayne Brown Correctional Facility Monday morning, said Sheriff Keith Royal. Jail personnel were trying to move James from his cell to a holding cell when he started to fight them. He sent several officers to the hospital, Royal said, one with a possible broken wrist and 2 with groin injuries. James was uninjured. He was arrested on suspicion of 4 counts of battery on a custodial officer. James was in jail on charges of resisting arrest, violating a restraining order, vandalism, and trespassing stemming from an April 16th arrest. He allegedly had knocked on a woman's door in violation of a restraining order. When he was located, he allegedly resisted arrest and started running, then fought with a deputy before taking off again. And here's our last story. An American Airlines flight from Hawaii carrying 147 people, including 7 crew members, landed safely in one engine in Los Angeles International Airport early Monday after Grass Valley pilot Thomas Juan Brown reported engine trouble. Airline spokesman Matt Miller in Dallas said instruments on Flight 246 showed trouble with the left engine about an hour before its scheduled arrival, and the engine was shut down. He says the aircraft is designed to fly safely on one engine. In an email to the union, Brown said it was his first engine failure in 13 years of flying with American Airlines, although he had plenty in the United States Air Force. This was an all-nighter this morning coming back from Kona, Hawaii, about an hour and a half out of LAX, Brown wrote. The left engine failed abruptly at a cruise about 38,000 feet. We suspected low-pressure engine-driven fuel pump failed. Brown said an emergency was declared. The plane was taken down to descend to 25,000 feet, where they ran the procedures and briefed the rest of the crew, notified the passengers of a minor mechanical problem with the left engine, and yours truly flew a flawless single-engine instrument landing system into LAX with crummy weather, 500 foot broken and missed. The Boeing 757 jetliner landed at 5:19 a.m. Kona passengers got off at the terminal gate. Federal Aviation Administration spokesman Ian Greger said FAA inspectors will work on the airline to determine the cause of the problem and ensure it's fixed before the plane is returned to service. He didn't send me an email, though. That's local news today. Now we'd like to thank the Union, Amy Goodman, Reuters, Associated Press, and others for the sourcing of our news, and you for watching. You can watch this broadcast on Comcast Cable, NCTV, Channel 11 in Nevada County, 8 a.m., 3 p.m., 7:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, Southern Link 16 in Truckee and Alta Sierra. We're also streamed on the internet, NCTV's Digital Media Center website at NevadaCountyTV.org and GVTV.org. And don't forget Grass Valley Television, that plays 24/7 on the net at GrassValleyTelevision.com. We post to Facebook, YouTube, Blip.tv, and many other podcast sites and other sites. And a video podcast on iTunes. Just search under Video Podcast for GVTV News. Content is controlled by the producer of this newscast, me, and Grass Valley Television is not necessarily the opinion of NCTV Digital Media Center. Grass Valley Television also videotapes local events around Nevada County. And if you want more information, grassvalleytelevision@gmail.com or 362-8889. This show is produced by Grass Valley Television of Rural County's television network. And yes, I know what you're saying. And Sharina Kanoke will be anchoring Tuesdays and Thursdays. We hope you will keep tuned into our new season, and we are going to spice up the news in the future. Please email me with ideas and comments. We like to hear from you, and like us on Facebook if you can. The news player can be on your site. You get all the fresh news updated daily. Just use the embed code on YouTube or Blip TV site, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. And, well, actually, we'll talk to you Monday. Have a nice weekend.